Hi, BookTube, it's Amy. I'm here once again with the Journal of Emily Shore, and there is a full-blown thunderstorm outside. So any rain pattering on the window might be picked up by the microphone here. The curtains are closed so you won't see the lightning. But we are moving on here in the year 1832. And we are reading the entry for July 18th, Wednesday, July 18th, 1832. And she says, "This day was colder and more windy. In my walk I found the nest of some insect. I think it is a spider's. It is formed amongst the gorse bushes and resembles a deep, narrow thimble formed of a cottony or silk substance, very thick and impervious to the rain. It is always slanting, I suppose, to prevent the rain from pouring in through the entrance, which is at the top. The edges of the entrance spread far and wide all round into a large and flat web of the same cotton, which suspends the nest safely among the bushes. The cotton is beautifully woven, thick, and not easily torn. Of all the caterpillars I brought home on Sunday, 8 only remain. The rest have crawled away, and have been lost or trodden to death. Poor little creatures. I shall never keep caterpillars alive again. While they were in the full enjoyment of health and liberty, I took them prisoners, confined them in a box, and shut them up in a house far from their homes, by which means almost all have been destroyed. It makes me quite unhappy to think of it. I shall certainly set them all at liberty tomorrow, and put them on one of the plants to which they belong." And July 19th. The first thing I did this morning on rising was to set my caterpillars at liberty, and I was very glad I had done it. Louisa afterwards found another of them in my room crawling about. This too I placed with its companions when I walked out. We went to the sand rock and had a nice game of play, only we dirtied ourselves terribly, at which Henrietta was much displeased. The sand rock is very pretty on one side of the road, fronting it. It declines on each side into green hills, covered with fern and larches, which reach to the hedge. This rock is much inhabited by sand martins, and is completely pierced by the holes which contain their nests. The sand martin is a very pretty bird, about the size of a swallow. The upper part of the body is soft brown. Underneath it is white, and the shape is extremely elegant. July 20th, Friday. This evening, as Papa and Mama were out in the gig, they saw at the Biggleswade turnpike road a man stretched out dead by the side of the road, but they thought he was asleep. It has since turned out that this is a case of cholera. If this dreadful disease reaches Potton, it will, I fear, from the drunkenness that pervades the place, there being no less than 13 public houses besides beer shops, prove very fatal. At tea time, Papa told us a story of an adventure which happened to a lady at Bury St. Edmunds. She and her husband were walking in a field when a bull attacked them furiously and ran after them. They happened to have a little dog with them, which increased the fury of the animal. By dint of running as hard as possible, they reached a stone fence or wall of some height. Her husband had but just time to throw his wife over when the bull came up and made so furiously at the wall that they expected every moment he would be over. The gentleman now thought that his only chance of safety was to throw the dog over to the enraged creature. He told his wife to run on. They had another gate to go through. He took the poor little animal in his arms and threw him over the wall. The dog, of course, ran away, the bull after it. It was tossed and gored. The lady never got over the fright. It eventually caused her death. That's quite a horrible thing to do. July 24th, Tuesday. The Way, and there's a blank here, spends her day in as follows. There's an asterisk here, which references, quote, "That's some thunder." I don't know if that's picked up on camera, but that's some thunder. There's an asterisk which refers to a footnote here. This lively picture was drawn on purpose to amuse the lady, a very dear friend and a very charming one, who was the subject of it, Edie. So there must have been perhaps something else in here, or this is going to be a note for what follows. But this is the start of the entry. First, she will be down in a quarter of an hour, but does not make her appearance till the middle of a breakfast made late on her account. She rustles into the room, laughs, and eats her breakfast. After this she dawdles a little while, and then sits down to her drawing. She every minute declares her abhorrence of it, and how she cannot go on with it any longer. However, it contrives to exist till luncheon. Then she jumps up, calls on everyone to praise her decision of character, and runs up to make away with it. Luncheon is all ready. She goes into the parlour and makes a dinner, though it is only 1 o'clock. When she has finished, she sits and talks a little while, then starts up and goes to the window to see the weather. Finding that it is just going to rain, she runs out into the garden, dragging all the house after her. A shower drives her in. On returning, she finds one of her paints lost, which is no wonder, for the table is covered with her litters. After setting everybody in the room to look for it, it is found on the top of her paint box. Dinner is announced. She laughs herself into the parlour and makes a hearty meal. She concludes the day with gossip and screaming to the sound of the harp. I guess that is a written portrait of a friend. July 31st, Tuesday. We went to Cambridge today. Papa and Mamma took Richard and me with them. We got up very early and took a slight breakfast. Then we set off in the gig with the 2 ponies and went through the most hideous country, all chalky, and in some parts the road was wretched. I, however, noticed a great many beautiful flowers in the hedges, many of which I did not know. When we were about a few miles from Cambridge, we came to the top of an exceedingly steep hill, with deep places on each side in one part. Here we had to get out and walk while the gig went down to the bottom of the hill. From this road was a very extensive and beautiful view before us. But what made me most glad to get out and walk was that I should be able to gather flowers. The chief of these was a very pretty flower called the Campanula rapunculus. It is of a deep purple color and not tall from the ground. I took it home and copied it. Cambridge is about 20 miles from Potton. We reached it at 8 o'clock and had breakfast immediately. Our object in coming was to see the chapels and colleges. So after having gone shopping some time, we went to see them. Jesus College is my favourite. The college itself is not worthy of attention, but the chapel is exquisite. It is an admirable specimen of early English architecture, especially the choir, which is decorated with the most beautiful windows and arches underneath them, each perfect in their kind with extremely deep mouldings. One particular sort, called the dog's tooth moulding, peculiar to early English, is found here. In the choir are 2 niches of remarkable beauty. The arches run into each other and twine together. They are surrounded by a square moulding of the dog's tooth sort. In its being square, it somewhat resembles the perpendicular style. The chapel is in the form of a cross, but the central tower, instead of being open all the way to the top, is unhappily shut out from the spectator by a nasty ceiling of the same height as the rest of the chapel. I say unhappily because what is above is perhaps more splendid even than the choir. We ascended by a dark winding staircase, but when we reached the interior of this tower itself, it was exquisite. All round the wall, it was square. There were the most beautiful arches with extraordinarily deep mouldings, and connected with each other, they were nearly all perfect. It is impossible for those who have not seen it to form an adequate idea of them. The capitals are in many places beautifully carved, and every arch has a cinquefoil belonging to it. I am glad to say that the ceiling is to be removed, and these noble arches will be laid open to view. The hall in Jesus College contains 2 portraits, Archbishop Cranmer and the celebrated Sterne. Cranmer is a copy painted by Sir Joshua Reynolds. And I know some of the paintings of Sir Joshua Reynolds. I quite like his paintings. There's one, I think it's him, of a woman standing kind of on a hillside that I quite like. August 2nd, Thursday. Papa in his drive today found the Verbascum tetralex or mullein, an extremely beautiful plant. The leaves grow at the root. They are large and very woolly and crumpled all over. The blossoms are flat, of a very delicate yellow color. The stamens are large and completely fringed with purple hairs. The flowers grow in a very long spike in hundreds together, quite closely so as to form a most beautiful appearance. The stalks are single and unbranched. This plant is found by roadsides in a sandy soil. And we'll just do one more entry here before we wrap for this video. August 5th, Saturday. We found in our walk today a large locust, 2 inches in length and of a light green color. He had 6 legs. The 2 hinder ones were those he leaped with. All the thighs were speckled with minute black spots. The top of his head was of a dark color, his eyes black, and above these, out of green roots, sprung 2 feelers, longer than his whole body, of a clear reddish yellow, speckled with black. On his neck there was something like a saddle. Along his back extended a stripe of the color of a dead leaf. His knees were brown, and his legs downward from his knees, full of little thorny points, and his claws very large. 4 little jointed things, like very small legs, came from his mouth. The upper part of his body seemed to be composed of 7 or 8 broad rings, laid over each other like scales. The upper part, or the under part of the body, was green, with 2 milk-white longitudinal stripes. I drew this creature. He constantly moved, but did not attempt to jump. I caught him in my handkerchief and kept him an hour or 2 under a finger glass turned upside down. And so that is the end of her entry for August 5th, but we do have a asterisk here, a note that says evidently a mistake for August 4th. So the editors here would have some sort of knowledge that we don't, that indicates this entry is from August 4th and not August 5th, as she says. So we'll leave it at there. I hope you enjoyed this next selection, and I will be back with some more entries soon.